Just one thing that I've been sort of noticing as this has gone on is that there have been a couple times where she seems to be cracking a joke, trying to get a reaction from the jury, and our reporters in the room have noted that the jury hasn't seemed to respond
No, they're
to
taking
that.
their job seriously.
I mean, what do you make of that?
Humor is risky in the courtroom, especially if you go in with lines, like it looks like Stormy. If something happens spontaneously, if an easel falls over, people will laugh. They're human. But it's never going to work if you go in there like, I'm going to amuse the jury. I'm going to sort of say this clever thing. That said, I think Stormy Daniels, from what we've seen, I think is relatable. And I don't think the jury's horrified by her. But yeah, it's risky to do that.
Well, she's 45 years old. She's been living in the world of adult film and video for more than 20 years. She's probably a little bit nervous. Yeah. She's making some jokes. And look, she's there as a witness. The jury, by all accounts, is taking this case very seriously. Every reporter in that room says they're completely attentive, even when the most boring details are being described. They are taking notes. They are watching witnesses. It doesn't surprise me at all that they wouldn't laugh, even if they thought it was funny.
Nobody wants Shecky Green in that witness box if you're the lawyer.
But
listen to the question and answer it.
Right.
Keep it for the lounge.
Sorry, I was in the courtroom, and when you heard laughter during Hope Hicks's testimony, it came from the people in the audience. It did not come from the jurors. She was nervously laughing. People recognize the idea of the nervous tick, the nervous giggle, and we've seen Stormy actually be interviewed, and she has sort of a smirk and a laugh easily at the end of every sentence. She also, this is a photo of Ms. Trump at the golf course that she's pointing to. So the idea of the jurors, I mean, again, the jurors themselves are going to be self-conscious.
So Trump's bodyguard asked, this is according to Stormy Daniels, Trump's bodyguard asked if she would have dinner with Mr. Trump, and her response was, according to her, F no, probably with less acronym. But
Yeah,
F no.
she actually did say F, according to our team.
Oh, she did say F.
On the stand just now, she used the letter F, not the full word.
No, I get it.
But at the time,
in real life, she probably didn't say F no. But the point is, she was not interested in having dinner with him. The bodyguard coming in to see if she would have dinner with Mr. Trump.
But this tells me, though, there is, I mean, I know it's a slight thing, but there is a level of decorum that happens in a courtroom that you're trained to say, that you would be a little self-conscious about dropping the F-bomb, that jurors would not want to be laughing because they have been told and instructed, let me check it again, not to show your hand, to listen to all of the evidence. They are self-conscious about how they are on display. When they walked into the courtroom, you've got an audience full of recognizable reporters and journalists who were sitting there watching you, trying to figure out who you are. They were self-conscious. They would often look back to the audience and wonder who's staring back at them. Would they be identified? Remember, a juror the very first day after being impaneled said, my anonymity is compromised.
So she just identified this bodyguard as Keith Schiller. And for those of you at home, Keith Schiller was the former director of security for the Trump Organization. Mr. Trump, unlike Michael Cohen, did bring Keith Schiller with him to the White House. He's a former law enforcement officer. He served as deputy assistant to U.S. President Trump and director of Oval Office operations, although in this telling he's serving a different role.
And years later,
he fired Comey, right?
Yes. Delivered the letter to James Comey.
Yeah,
telling him
but
he was
at this
fired.
period of time, you could not encounter Donald Trump without encountering Keith Schiller basically at the same time. I mean, they went everywhere together. Like if you covered when Trump went down the Golden Escalator, that was another instance where I had actually been covering Trump for several years.
Keith Schiller, by the way,
at
this moment, Keith Schiller takes her cell phone number and then messages her later.
Right, and if you wanted to get in touch with Trump during this period of time, remember he started engaging in politics well before the 2016 election. I had encountered him at various times and built a relationship with his team as he appeared at these kind of conservative confabs. And what she's describing is how you would get in touch with Donald Trump, right? You would make a connection with Keith Schiller. He would you would give him your number, he would take yours, and then if Donald Trump wanted to get in touch with you, that's what would happen. Which is why they're going through all of this.
Stormy, the jury is now seeing a photograph of Keith Schiller's entry in Stormy Daniels' phone. Keith Trump, it's called. She said it's because she didn't know Keith Schiller's last name, but she knew he worked for Donald Trump. So I guess that makes sense. Kind of a mundane detail. I do that a lot to help identify contacts, she says. She said she had another dinner, but her publicist encouraged her to go to dinner with Trump.
Yeah, and again, this all kind of I think it does actually go to the credibility of Stormy Daniels in terms of her interaction here and in providing sort of these granular details, or at least it's relevant for me, as someone who understands kind of how this would work.
So at this point, Anderson, Daniel said she had another dinner, but her publicist is encouraging her to go to dinner with Donald Trump, which, as Brian Stelter reminded us earlier, in 2006 was really at the height of his fame when it came to The Apprentice and Celebrity Apprentice to come on NBC. Hugely popular show, doing very, very well in the ratings. And of course, her publicist says, go to dinner with this popular man. What could possibly go wrong were his words to Stormy Daniels that she recounts with a laugh. Indeed, what could possibly go wrong, Anderson?
Yeah, if nothing else, you'd get a great story. She recalled her publicist saying, prophetic words indeed, back here with Paula Reed and John Berman as well. I mean, she started out on the stand laying the groundwork of her background, trying to sort of humanize her, talking about her interests, and now they're getting, obviously, to the time that Stormy Daniels comes to the hotel room, according to her, of Donald Trump. At the very least, he'd probably have some interesting advice, Daniels recalls her publicist telling her.
So it is interesting because she'll talk later on, I think, in this narrative about how a lot of her interest in Trump was just the possibility of being on Celebrity Apprentice. She was approaching this in sort of a transactional way. She was trying to build her brand, get more exposure, and one of the reasons she keeps in touch with him is because she holds out hope that maybe she can get on Celebrity Apprentice, even though she is skeptical that at that time NBC would have allowed an adult film star on his show. She says that he told her that every season he gets one pick that they can't argue with. So it's interesting right now they're setting up her reasons for meeting with him.
And again, it's step by step, forgive me, to the sex. I mean,
Yeah.
we are getting a step-by-step account of how she went to that golf tournament, the interactions that took place, and what brought her inside that room where the encounter took place. And the jury is hearing all of this.
Yeah, and we haven't gotten any, and I don't expect in the next couple hours, any evidence that would support the actual charges underlying this case, which are the falsifying of business records, 34 counts. She's not going to be able to speak to that. Where she will offer something, a building block for the prosecutor's case, is one, she can say that they had sex, which contradicts what the defendant has said, and then also talk about how interest in her story, right, years later, well over a decade later, after the Access Hollywood tape suddenly escalates. She said, so I arrived and I went upstairs. Keith had given me very specific instructions to take a certain elevator to the penthouse floor, describing this first encounter with Trump.
And what it does is it provides color for all of that which Donald Trump wanted to suppress prior to the 2016 election.
That's where I met Keith, who was waiting for me outside the door, Daniel said. Keith Schiller, Trump's longtime bodyguard, who's now retired, essentially. Waiting outside the door. This seems to be obviously the practice. Keith Schiller, as others have talked about, was sort of the go-between, giving out his cell phone number as the point of contact.
Yeah, and in a post-Me Too world, I mean, meeting someone that you don't know that well in their hotel room under these circumstances, right, some people might think twice. Now, the hotel room door was cracked open when she got there, Daniel said, so she walked right in, and Schiller told her Trump was waiting for her. And this is a story she has told many times, I believe, to you as well, about this first encounter in the hotel.
And this is under oath, though,
Yes,
in a
very
jury
different.
room, before a jury, when
I
Donald
didn't really
Trump
have any
was
expectations. Keith had said, just meet up here and you guys can go downstairs, Daniel said. The idea that they were going to go out for dinner, I think in the end they do not actually go out for dinner.
They're not going out. It doesn't sound like where this is headed.
Yeah.
That's right. She's told this story publicly before, but John makes a good point. This is the first time she's telling this under oath, because all of these folks have lied or misled at one point in this saga. But you can lie to the press, you can lie to your friends, but you can't lie in a court of law. So here Daniel's notes that there were restaurants at the hotel, and she said that was my only expectation, and we know they don't end up at the restaurant.
The question also will become, how does the defense handle Stormy Daniels?
I was just thinking about that. They're getting this detailed account of how this encounter took place. Are they going to bother to try to undercut that?
Hoffender again asked Daniels to slow down for the court reporter. She continues to talk quickly. She's recounting her story.
I think instead they're going to come at this again. You have to be sensitive. You don't want to sort of attack her on the stand, but you're going to come at this arguing that she was indeed an opportunist. In her own words, her interest in even returning Trump's calls after this alleged encounter, because she wants to be on Celebrity Apprentice. They were also going to talk about how she went back at him after Access Hollywood, knowing that her story was more valuable, knowing that he would need to suppress the story, and noting that her lawyer, they have tried to frame him as a professional extortionist. So that's, I think, how they're going to attack her. I mean, arguing about what did or did not happen in the hotel room, that's not really going to make or break the case, but getting at her incentive to get this hush money might help them a little.